feel like I'm still learning things from writing with Guy Clark. Like when I look back on that time, sitting at his workbench, he called me one morning and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Man, I'm just crawling out of the morning." And he's paused for a second. He was like, "That's a good line for a song." It's just a constant stream of writing and probably annoying the hell out of my wife. I have to keep playing the thing till it tells me what it wants to be. Sometimes I pray you come around. 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's cool. What's the name of that tune?
That's called Rough in the Country.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love those like open fits. It's got this kind of like
Thanks,
almost West African thing mixed with like this country thing.
Yeah,
super
it's
cool.
Australian.
Yeah, that's the perfect intersection of the two. I love
That's
that.
a new tune I've been working on with Tom Bukovac and Guthrie Trapp.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So you've got this project, Guitar Party.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come to be?
Well, in my mind, it came about. I was playing a solo show at Third and Lindsley, probably about 2 years ago now, and completely solo, which I never do, and I'm not sure why I did it that way. But I wasn't having a great time in general. I wasn't too thrilled about playing the show. Or really looking forward to it, and I wasn't in a good space mentally. But I thought, I'm just gonna go play this show, and then this will be the last solo show I ever play. If I ever even play a show again, like that's the terrible mood I was in. And I started playing, and through the back door, I see Tom and Guthrie walk in. And instantly, it kind of brightened my day and made me feel good. My friends came to see me play. And they were like, "Man, we want to get up and play with you." And I was like, "Really? Okay, great." And so Tom got up, played a song with me, a song I wrote years ago. And Guthrie got up, sat in, played a song with me, and it was so fun. And they had just made In Stereo a record, the two of them, and it was super fun. And it just sort of like reinvigorated my enthusiasm for wanting to play, and reminded me that playing music is about playing with your friends.
Yeah.
Having a good time, not taking it all so seriously. So we did that, and then there was a show, the In Stereo launch show, release show was coming up after that. And they asked me to come down and sit in, be a guest on the show. And so we played a few songs, and Nick Goverick came down, who's a mutual friend of all of ours, and sang a couple songs, and it was just the most fun night of music. And we just sort of all thought, why wouldn't we keep this going? Mm-hmm. And so we started booking shows, and we did 3 nights in New York and sold out every night. 2 nights in Chicago and sold out every night. And it's interesting because through our YouTube channels, we had no idea that like people would come out of the woodwork to come see us play live.
It's not a number on a screen. Those are real humans on the other side.
Yeah, and it was great because we already had a connection with all of these amazing people through the comments section in the videos.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like people were lined up outside the clubs and they would say, hey, I'm, you know, Jimmy 51 from Brooklyn or whatever, their little tagline from their comment. It's like, oh yeah, how's it going? You know? So it's been really fun and a great continuation of, you know, the thing we do where we sit down and talk to people and teach a bit, play a bit, and talk about life. And these people that like watching our videos come to the gigs.
This podcast is really a labor of love, and the function is really to share the incredible stories and inspiration to help you along your journey as a musician. If you want to help the show, one of the best ways that you can do it is to click the subscribe button below, leave us a comment, or leave us a like. That helps tell YouTube to spread this to more people like you. Additionally, we've been thinking about cool ways that we can add more value to our community here. And our nerdy team over here has come up with a really cool new software tool for you. Basically, it's a slow down and looping tool for all of the platforms that you learn guitar on. It lives in your browser on top of YouTube and Instagram, and it allows you to slow things down, loop different sections so you can really focus and learn things from all of these videos. It's a super cool tool. I use it every single day myself, and we want to give it to you as the viewer for free. So all you need to do is click the link below, register for that, install it on your computer, and that is our gift to you. In addition to that, we've created a totally free community where we're adding a bunch of bonuses and extras, things like tablatures from the episodes, behind the scenes content. Like I said, it's totally free. If that's interesting to you, click the link below in the description and we'll see you over there. With that, let's get back into the show.
Well, I'm excited for today's episode because we're going to dig into a bunch of stuff. I want to learn more about your writing process with Guitar Party. I want to learn about more of your background, obviously playing with Vince Gill and all of these incredible artists. And also I know you're working on some teaching stuff around songwriting. So I want to learn a little bit about that as well. Yeah. But maybe a good place to start is with Guitar Party. You guys are working on a new record. It sounds like you've been working on it this week. Is it mostly an acoustic record?
Yes.
Can you talk about that songwriting process for the group?
Yeah. So it's very much a democratic process with the three of us, with Tom and I and Guthrie. Basically what we've been doing is, you know, we always have these little nuggets of ideas and little voice memos we keep on our phones of whatever, you know, a riff, a section, some chord changes, you know, whatever sort of little thing that might be interesting that we feel like we have to keep track of. So we have a text thread and we just keep sending each other these little nuggets of ideas. And if something resonates with one of us, then we might sit down and write another little section to go with that for the song. Or, you know, we might also, when we get together, you know, someone might have one thing, somebody has another, and we'll just put those things together or see if they work together. And when we get to the studio, we basically just start with these nuggets and we sit around kitchen table, three of us with acoustic guitars, and we say, all right, let's work on this idea today. And we work on one song a day. And we just basically flesh out the arrangement and the, you know, the body of the song, this A section, a B section, a C section, and we build this little thing, the three of us, and then we, you know, the kitchen is built into the studio itself, so then we walk over and we put our headphones on, and we start playing the song and we start building the track, and yeah, so what starts out as a little nugget of an idea in the morning, by the end of the day, we've got a full track built from the ground up. And we've just been going one song a day that way, you know, which is kind of luxurious, to be honest. But
so nice.
It's nice, and it gives you the time to really flesh out and try different things with the arrangement and with the, you know, structure of the song. with overdubs, building out sections a little bit. But I thought it would be a challenge to approach the project from an acoustic standpoint.
Yeah.
Just because, my heart and home base is acoustic anyway, because that's kind of where I started out when I was a kid. And I love, we're all sort of known a little bit for our electric, whether it be playing sessions on, playing on projects, the electric thing is a big part of the conversation. But when I first met Tom 20 odd years ago, when I moved to Nashville, he and I would, hang out at his house and sit on his couch and play acoustic guitars. And it was such a fun memory of mine was doing that. And Guthrie, we were housemates for a long time in 12th South here in Nashville, before it became the 12th South we know now.
Yeah, it's a different vibe.
It's a different vibe. It used to be very much a locals musician kind of vibe around there.
Wow.
But, like Guthrie and I, even back then, if we were plunking around playing at all, it would usually be on an acoustic, or I'd hear him wailing on the mandolin across the hallway. And I've always sort of had an affinity for acoustic music. And so I thought if we were going to do a project, it would be fun to kind of approach the thing from an acoustic standpoint. And so that's what we're doing.
You started in bluegrass and songwriting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My first gig when I moved to Nashville was playing with Patty Loveless.
Yeah.
Playing acoustic and singing background harmonies.
How'd you land that gig?
That gig was kind of a friend of a friend sort of thing. I just moved to town. It was March 16th of 2002.
Wow.
So it was cold, and I remember I had about $800 to my name, which was enough for a couple months' rent at this apartment complex in Antioch. And so I needed a job, and I needed to find one quick. And the one person that I knew in Nashville was Terry McBride, and he had heard through his friend, Billy Thomas, that Patty Loveless was looking for a guitar player and harmony singer. And I didn't know much about Patty Loveless at that point, but I knew of her, and I knew she was a really good country singer. Anyway, through some phone calls, I got an audition spot 2 weeks from the date that I found out she was looking for someone. So I thought, I got to get this gig, So I went to, I said, they said, learn these 4 songs and, play these and see how you go. And so I thought, well, I got to be as prepared as I can. So I went down to Phonolux, which is an old record store here in town on Nolensville Road. And I bought every Patty Loveless record that they had, which was 10 records.
Wow.
Which is pretty much her whole catalog, I think, at that point. There might have been a couple more I missed. But I went and learned every song from every record. And so I spent 2 weeks just like living and breathing Patty Loveless music, and I learned all the songs, all the harmony parts, all the main riffs and things. I just got inside of it as much as I could. And I learnt a lot from that too. But so I went into the audition, and I was really nervous because I'd never been around anybody famous. You know what I mean? It was like I walk into this little office in Nashville, and there's Patty Loveless. So I was super nervous. My voice was shaking and my hands were shaking, and I was, it was like really intense. And we played these 4 songs. Patty was very sweet, and I felt like I was doing okay, other than my shaky voice. And she said, well, do you know any other songs? Is there anything other? And then,
you're like, do I ever?
Yeah. And I said, well, actually, I know all your songs. And she laughed, and I was like, we can do anything you want to do. And she kind of looked at me sideways, and she was like, really? I said, yeah, I went and bought all your records and learned all your songs. And she laughed out loud, and she said, okay, how about this one? I said, yeah, I know that one. And we sat down, played it, sang it. And she was like, wow, you really are prepared. And, I probably turned bright red, I'm sure. I was like, yeah, I guess, And so that was that. And, I went out into the next room, and the next guy came in, and I kind of heard him through the wall. And I was like, that guy's really good. He'll probably get the gig, And a couple days went by, and my phone rang, and it was Paddy's husband, Emery Gordy Jr., who I also admired and knew his name from, playing on records, producing records. And he called me, and he said, hey, what are you doing Friday night? This was on Wednesday, and the audition was on Monday. And I said, well, I'm not doing anything. He said, why don't you come down and play the Grand Ole Opry with us? And I said, what? He was like, yeah, and are you free this weekend? We're going to play Merle Fest in North Carolina. And I was just sort of in a daze. I was like, okay. Does that mean I got the job? I don't think I said that, but I was thinking it. And he said, oh yeah, by the way, can you play mandolin on the Opry with Paddy? And I was like, I don't even own a mandolin. I mean, I knew how to play mandolin, but I didn't have one. He was like, don't worry about it, I'll bring one for you. So I called my parents, and I was like, hey, you're not going to believe this. I got a job in Nashville. I'm playing on my first gigs on the Grand Ole Opry Friday night with Paddy Loveless. And it was televised back then, when CMT used to televise the Opry. So there I was, playing the Grand Ole Opry with, this beautiful old Gibson Lloyd Lower mandolin, singing with Paddy Loveless. And from there, I did get the gig, and we did the Oh Brother We're Out There tour, which is with all my acoustic music heroes. I met and became good mates with Rodney Crowell, which we've been working together for the last 20 years because of that. And, Ralph Stanley, and just a lot of really important music to me that I got to really connect with right off the bat. It was just a charmed sort of entry into the whole thing.
It's a wild entry.
Yeah.
That's a wild, it's very, it's preparation meets total opportunity. And
yeah,
I'm
a big believer in that too.
Yeah. What did you, I was, in my research around you, it seemed like simultaneously you were doing a lot of writing and your own personal artistry. How did you weave the two together? How did you spend your time to, cultivate your own craft around writing songs and also being a sideman?
Yeah, well, it sort of happened in different stages. Like when I got here and I got the Paddy gig, people started asking questions like, who is this young guy from Australia, that can play acoustic and electric and sing and write songs? And that sort of led to a deal, like a record deal with MCA when I was 22 or 23. And I suddenly got sort of pulled into this vortex of, being a country artist, and which was great, and that was sort of my secret dream when I was a kid. I wanted to be Vince Gill. And then that sort of turned into collaboration, and I really got involved with writing, co-writing, and recording, and sessions. People liked my guitar playing, and they would ask me to come play on their projects, and it all just sort of turned into this multifaceted career, I suppose. Which is still kind of my musical life to this day, is all of those things. Writing, playing, recording, touring.
Yeah.
And a lot of those things I didn't sort of know much about until I got here, especially like co-writing. You know, I had no idea what was involved with that, and that was a pretty steep learning curve. Right.
How did you learn it? How did you learn the skill?
Well, I went straight into the deep end, and this Terry McBride, who was the guy that kind of pulled me out of college in Texas. I'd met him down there. I came to the States when I was 18 and started going to this amazing music school in West Texas called South Plains College.
Great bluegrass program there.
Yeah. I was like, deep into bluegrass and acoustic music. And Terry and I sort of struck up a friendship, and he helped me, you know, move to town and said,
How'd that happen?
How did that happen?
Yeah, how'd that happen?
I made a little demo CD of songs that I'd written in college. And when he had some friends that were teachers at the college that he had known from the Texas music scene, which is where he started out. And he came down to give a workshop, and I met him, handed him my little demo CD, and he called me a week later, and he was like, "What are you doing when you get out of college?" And I said, "Well, I'm either going to go to Austin or Nashville." And he said, "Well, if you come to Nashville, I'll help you out, you know, and we could try to write some songs, you know, try to get something going." And I said, "Okay, great." So that's what I did. And, you know, I slept on his couch when I moved here. And then he set up all these amazing co-writing appointments, which was, you know, I didn't know what I was doing at all. You know, I was terrified half the time, you know, because it is scary sort of opening yourself up to complete strangers. And it does take practice, and it, you know, and it takes, you know, showing up with a good idea, hopefully, or a terrible idea, and learning from that as well. You know, both of those things are completely important, I feel like, in developing. And I did both. I had terrible ideas, and I had some good ideas. And for a couple of years, in between touring with Patty and doing that, I was writing songs with Terry and all kinds of people, you know, Kim Ritchie, you know, Rodney, Crowell, of course, so many people, Jeffrey Steele, just so many different writers. You know, a couple of days a week I would write.
Yeah.
And that was great. And then, you know, through that, I got a couple of songs cut, which was crazy, you know. And then that started happening. And so, you know, it just sort of slowly snowballed into making a living and doing all these different things.
More consistency.
Yeah.
How'd you get the gig with Vince Gill? Can you talk about that story?
Yeah. So the gig with Vince. So I had met Vince when I was on MCA in 2004, and I had sat in with his band a couple times, which was, you know, unbelievable dream come true. Like, when I was a kid growing up in nowhere, South Australia, listening to Vince Gill records, that's the kind of thing I would daydream, you know, like, I mean, I literally would write stories about moving to Nashville, meeting Vince Gill, playing guitar with Vince Gill, you know, like these things, like, and they happened, which there's a power in that, you know. So yeah, it's crazy. So the gig with Vince came about. I was living in LA, and I had just finished a couple of years touring with Emmylou Harris and Rodney Crowell, and I'd moved back to Nashville. We had our first boy in LA, and we moved back to Nashville. And Tom Bukovac had been playing with Vince. Tom got the call to go out with Joe Walsh, which is kind of his childhood dream, you know, being a boy from Cleveland and, you know, growing up with a rock and roll heart that he has. And so Tom said to Vince, you know, I can't do it, but you should call Jedd, you know, because he already knows all your music. And he said, okay. So Vince called me up, and he said, you know, when you want to come out on the road? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. So we had no rehearsal. I flew I got sent a list of songs, and I pretty much knew them all, you know, remembered them, went over them, and our first show was somewhere in the Midwest, and we did a sound check, and then we did the first show, and I just remember standing on stage thinking, this is crazy. You know,
what was the venue? Do you remember?
It was just some indoor nice sort of theater or something. You know, Paul Franklin was sitting right there in front of me, and he would turn around and smile at me, you know, and I was like, this is crazy.
How old were you at the time?
That was, I think I've been with Vince close to 10 years now. So that was around 2016, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
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 The fulfillment of a childhood dream. Yeah.
It can happen.
Yeah.
I tell my kids that.
Yeah. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dream it.
Yeah.
Write it down. Talk about it. Really see it in your mind.
Yeah.
You know, feel the experience, or try to feel like what you think it's going to be like.
Yeah.
And you can forecast your future, you know. Like, I mean, I did. And I don't know how, you know, and nobody ever talked to me about that. I think part of it was because there was a certain degree of isolation where I grew up, that anything musical that came across my, you know, radar or path, there was a real value to it. And I think, I don't know, there's an energy that you can manifest and create when you feel so like something is so precious to you.
Yeah.
And I've talked to other Australians about that, because, you know, back in the 90s, it's just so funny to say out loud, back in the 90s, I guess it is like 30 years ago, though.
Crazy,
you know, that is crazy.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't as easy in South Australia, where I grew up, to find the things that you wanted to find.
Yeah.
So when you did find them, you know, like,
it's a gem.
Yeah, it was like treasure.
Yeah.
It was like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Were your parents musical?
My dad was and is. He had these thick songbooks of handwritten lyrics and chords written above them, songs that he would learn. He was sort of the campfire guitar hero in town, in the small town I grew up in. It was about 800 people, 900 people.
Did it just like blow their minds when you decided to move to Nashville and started playing with all these people?
My parents?
Yeah.
Did it blow their minds?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was always sort of part of the forecast for my life, I think, because I started doing it so young. I was 8 years old when I started singing, and then 9 years old when I started playing guitar. And I wasn't doing very well at school because I just wasn't interested. I just wanted to play music.
Yeah.
And so I left high school when I was 16. I went on the road with an Australian band. I toured for like a year and a half, saved up all my money because I wanted to go to this college, which people still ask to this day, how did you get into college without finishing high school?
Yeah, how did that work?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was some divine intervention there. Or I had enough Australian bullshit to like get me across the line. But it happened. So Yeah, my dad was musical, and he had a great collection of American country music, and sort of pop and rock and roll as well. Like everything from Creedence to Hendrix to Johnny Cash, all sorts of great Australian music. Obscure Aussie music, and for some odd reason, when I was a kid, everybody else wanted to go outside and play, and I just wanted to listen to these giant black records. For some reason, I was just like curious about it. Marty Robbins was one of my favorite ones. Gunfighter Ballads. This guy in an amazing black suit, that sang about these, El Paso and these great cowboy songs. It was just like, what are these stories? Like, what happens in this place called America, where all this music's made? Like right from when I was little.
It's a mythical land.
Yeah, it was. It was like this planet that I had to go find, that I felt connected to for some odd reason. Like right from when I was little, I felt this sort of strange calling to go to this place, which I figured out later on was Nashville. That's where all these records were made. Nashville. I kept seeing it, recorded in Nashville. So that's what I did.
What have you learned playing with Vince specifically? Like what have you learned about music or performance or the craft from playing alongside your hero?
Oh, lots of things. Consistency is a big one. I feel like Vince Gill is one of the most consistent musicians I've ever been around. He's an incredible singer, an incredible guitar player. He has an incredible sense of timing and pocket and feel. It's when you're around that day in, day out on a gig, that's a good thing to be around. It's a very high bar, and that band is a very, it's a dream being in that band.
Yeah.
Because the level of listening and self-mixing of everybody in the band, because everybody's sensibilities are so connected to Vince's. It's like, I don't know, it's just a very high level of it's like being in the studio with the best studio musicians. Everybody's listening to each other. Everybody's reacting to everybody else. It's just, man, it's like, I don't know if it gets any better.
Yeah. That's the top. That's the top of the craft.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what does the typical week look like for you? Because before we started filming, you were like, well, I'm doing this. I got this project. The whole next year, you have a plan for what's going to be kind of happening for you in terms of all of these projects. Are a lot of these sort of interspersed, or are they happening simultaneously? Are they sort of sequenced? What does a typical Jedd Hughes week look like?
I mean, I like to start things and finish them before I start the next thing. But that doesn't happen very often. By design, I sort of have to crossfade in, projects and things, which is fine. That's okay. I mean, it keeps me moving. But like the typical week is usually three things. It's usually some form of writing, which is usually collaboration, co-writing on either a project I'm producing or working on, or with an artist that I love. Like I've been writing with Sarah Jarosz a lot this past year, and that's so fun.
She's so great.
She's so great.
Yeah, we had her on the show a few weeks ago.
Brilliant.
Phenomenal.
She's incredible.
Yeah.
So, I love writing with her, and there's a handful of artists that, that I love writing with, and it's always something I look forward to because there's already a musical connection there there's no work at all. It's just all fun, and it's always very fulfilling. So, there'll be something like that during the week, probably. There's, I get called to play guitar in sessions and on projects, which I love to do, and I work with John Randall a lot on records he's producing. So, it could be that. It could be something I'm producing that I'm going to a studio to work on with the artist and engineer. There's been a lot of film stuff lately, which has been fun, because that's something I, like to learn more about, how that works, how music applies to, a music supervisor's thing that they're looking for, which can change, which is interesting. Like, if something has to correlate with a scene, there's something musically that has to happen that they're looking for that I might not otherwise think about creatively. So that's been cool. I've been learning a lot about that. And my dream someday, another childhood dream I've had is to do a soundtrack, like a full soundtrack for a movie.
Yeah.
Like Ry Cooder, like Paris, Texas or something, or, like Daniel Lanois with Sling Blade. I would love to check that box someday.
Yeah.
And it seems like more of that is happening in Nashville, more sort of movie-related recording, which is cool. I have a YouTube channel that I love to, when I feel compelled, I love to sit down and play, talk about some playing things, connect with my little community that way. That feels good. There's when I wake up in the morning, there's 10 things to do, and there's probably 2 things that I'll get done, but there's a lot of musically, tasks and things and jobs to go do, and they're usually all a little bit different, which is good.
It seems like you have done a great job in your career of creating momentum in a lot of different areas, to the point where now your schedule is packed with so many fun, interesting things. What percentage of your work life feels like work at this point, as opposed to just stuff that's just purely enjoyable?
Not much of it really feels like work anymore.
That's awesome.
Which is amazing.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sort of saying yes to things that you feel resonate with you naturally creates a momentum where suddenly your work history starts feeding itself naturally. And so, I don't really end up connected to things that I'm not really interested in much. Or does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I don't get called for things that I just wouldn't probably be the right guy for anyway.
You're not getting the hair metal calls.
Yeah. Or even a lot of the really commercial sort of country things. Like, there are guys that do that amazing, and I wouldn't be the right guy for that. But that's fine, because I don't really get called for that.
Yeah.
And so, by saying yes to the things that I have over the last couple of decades, it's all just sort of led to a natural connection to music that I'm naturally connected to. So, it's like I grew up loving Vince Gill and Rodney Crowell and Emmylou Harris and all of these things, and I've ended up, being connected to those things naturally, and things that are connected to those things, which there are a lot of things in Nashville that people that want to make music that is, Americana or acoustic or whatever it ends up being. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes total sense. Yeah. There's like a through line.
Yes.
And once people see enough consistency of a certain genre in your past, they offer you more gigs like that. And it happens to be in a lane that you really love.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. You put out a record this year?
Yeah.
In May, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What was that process like?
Nightshades. Yeah. That was another unique process for me. I started that record in our garage in Austin when we were living there during the pandemic. And, it started in solitary, me just sort of building tracks. And I called Rodney Crowell and I said, could you help me make a record? He said, yeah, I can. And I started sending him songs, and he helped me finish a pile of them, and we took some tracks that I had started and we built on those in the studio here. And that record, it took a while to kind of get out, but it was made relatively quickly, I think. Mm-hmm. So a lot of songs I wrote with Rodney, some I wrote by myself. There's a song on there that I was fortunate enough to meet Guy Clark when I moved to town in 2002, and I got to write songs with him and spend time with him for a good 10 years.
Wow.
And that was really meaningful times for me.
What did you learn from writing with Guy Clark?
Oh man, I feel like I'm still learning things from writing with Guy Clark. Like when I look back on that time, sitting at his workbench, and every now and then I'll remember something else, or a conversation that we had, and I don't know, there's something about that that's I'm still getting something from. But the song I recorded on Nightshades was the second song that we wrote, I think, which is from years ago. It was from like 20 odd years ago. So I'm glad that finally saw the light of day. And there's a few others too that are unreleased and that I sort of have in my drawer that maybe will come out again. But that was a special time with Guy. It was like he was a very cool he liked me for some odd reason. He didn't like everybody, but we got along good. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I would love to hear you play a tune from the record, and then maybe we can pivot into talking about some songwriting stuff. Does that sound like a cool plan?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Let's see. Okay. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do this song. I'll see if I can remember it. I haven't played it in a few weeks. I wrote this with Rodney Crowell and Sarah Buxton in my little house on Carruthers Avenue in 12th South. We wrote this probably 13 years ago, and it ended up in that Nashville TV series in one of the first seasons, which was cool. And it also ended up on Rodney's record that we made with Jeff Tweedy in Chicago. We recorded in Chicago a few years ago. And it's called Lovin' You's the Only Way to Fly. I should have moved on Why I still want you, I don't know. I miss your lips so tender, your fingertips so slender, the moonlight, midnight, sparkle in the corner of your eye. Loving you is the only way to fly. Can't find the strength to stand alone. Can't seem to find my way back home. I fell so far, so deep. Can't eat, can't breathe, can't sleep, which all comes down to one more round of me, myself and I. Loving you is the only way to fly. Somebody said some dreams come true, some pass you by. That's what they said. Sometimes I pray you'll come around, and we'll find a house somewhere in town. I keep my hopes alive with one long free fall dive. I drink and think and sink into the bottom of this life. Loving you is the only way to fly. Somebody said some dreams come true, some pass you by.
Beautiful tune.
Thanks, man.
Beautiful tune.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the songwriting process. How does something like that come into existence?
This particular one started with the melody, which I knew I had a day on the books coming up with Rodney, and I thought, you know, I gotta come in with something good, and I thought it would be cool to write like an old school, almost sort of Everly Brothers melody. So I sat down and I sort of came up with this static melody over these changes, you know. It's one note really, but it's three different chords. And I thought, oh, that's kind of old school and cool, you know, maybe I'll see if he likes that. So he came in and I said, hey, I got this piece of melody, you know, it's kind of like an Everly Brothers thing. And he heard it and he said, oh, I know exactly what to do with this. He said, I've got this idea for this song called Lovin' You's the Only Way to Fly. And I heard that title and I was like, that's so Rodney Crowell, you know?
Yeah.
To come in swinging with a great lyric idea, you know? And we wrote that song that day, the three of us. And I just thought, oh, this is special, you know? This is a good song. And that was years ago, you know? And I always thought it was a strong song. And a few years went by, and I said, hey, we should record that song, Loving You's the Only Way to Fly, or pitch it to somebody or do something with it. And he said, well, I've kind of rewritten it. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I just thought the lyrics could be better, you know, and he played me the new version of it. And I was like, well, yeah, it is better.
Wow, that's great.
It's, you know, and so, but I had been playing it the old way with the first lyrics that we wrote, you know, and so it really took me some time to figure out this new version. And he said, I want to cut it on my record, which I thought was so cool, you know, because, you know, Rodney Crowell recording a song that you helped to write is like, you know, check.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I said, well, I want to record it too. And he said, all right, yeah, great. You know, you do a version, I'll do a version, and we'll both put it out. So that's what we did. And sometimes that happens, you know, like I keep a little sort of backlog of melodies, because I do like writing from a purely melodic standpoint sometimes with certain people. Like Natalie Hemby and I, when we get together, I love bringing in just a melody with Natalie because I know her lyrical depth is so deep and so amazing that if I can come in with a strong melody, you know, Matresa Berg is another one that's like, I always come ready with a good melody, try to, what I think is a good melody, you know, because their lyrical contribution is always so amazing that, you know, and sometimes lyric for me, sometimes it comes easy, sometimes it doesn't, you know. Sometimes I have something I really want to say and I'll sit down and start that way and the melody will come with the lyric. And sometimes it doesn't, you know. With Sarah Jarosz, I have, because we've been writing together for so many years now, or we sort of have a writing history together, there are certain ideas that if something occurs to me, I'll make a little note. It'll be like, all right, next time I get together with Sarah, I'll throw this into the pile because I know, I have a good feeling it'll resonate with her. And I feel like, you know, when you come to Nashville and you do co-write for long enough, you find your little crew of people that you just connect with, you know. And for me, that's, you know, Sarah Jarosz, Sarah Buxton, Adam Wright, you know, Rodney. There's sort of a short list of people that I really look forward to making music with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're working on a course right now.
Yes.
Can you break down the courses on songwriting?
Yeah.
Can you break down sort of some of the fundamentals that you feel are important for people to understand if they want to write cohesive songs?
Yeah. So the course I'm building comes from a guitar playing standpoint because I've accumulated all these amazing nerdy guitar player types out there
Yep.
via YouTube, which is awesome, you know. But the questions I kept getting on my channel was like, all right, the guitar stuff's great, it's cool, we like that, but how do you write songs? Like, how do you make music out of just sitting down and noodling on the guitar? And I'm like, great question.
Starts with a C major arpeggio.
Yeah, I know. And that's all great. So, I mean, I learn stuff all the time that way too.
Yeah.
But the songwriting thing and creating music out of all of these modalities and chords and things is like, you know, it's a little bit of a mystery, but it's also not that much of a mystery. Because I do feel like there is some method to the end product, you know. So what I've been doing with Brett Popper is like, I've been deconstructing my sort of methods that I feel like, or, you know, my just little things I've picked up over the years from different writers, deconstructing those things and demystifying the process a little bit, you know. And because I come at it mostly from a guitar playing standpoint, my writing starts with a guitar in my hands. The things I've been working on are, you know, how do you come up with a motif on the guitar that is unique to you, you know? One little trick I have is I detune one string. And once I do that, that's just one of many little things that you can do to take yourself out of a familiar place you might go to, and it might point somewhere, anywhere, you know. So like for me, I had this song on a record called West, called Animalize, and I detuned the G string to an F sharp, and I kept just fooling around with like, how can I move chords and keep these notes static? And from that, I was like, okay, that's telling me something, you know? And so I sat around for a few weeks, and every time I picked up the guitar, I would just fool around with that sound, just the pure sound of that, playing out of B. And I came up with this riff. Let's see. Once I got that, I was like, well, I like that. You know, what's that saying to me? And I was sitting on my couch, and I had a dog at the time called Rocco, and he would look up at me, you know, and he would sit on the couch and look at me every now and then, and I had this title come from that called Animal Eyes. Animal Eyes. And I was like, okay, I like that. So I got this riff. I got this sort of modal sort of sound that doesn't really imply a third major or minor. It just sort of leaves the door open, and I have this title of this song, Animal Eyes. And so then I'm kind of getting down the road. I'm like, okay, there's a song coming here. So a few more weeks go by. And I live my life with like 5 of these things going at all times. Mm-hmm. You know, like it's just constant. It's just a constant stream of writing. And probably annoying the hell out of my wife with these like, she was like, God, can you just finish that song so I don't have to hear that riff again? Like, but I have to keep playing the thing till it tells me what it wants to be. Mm-hmm. So this particular one, this song Animalize, the first line came from a conversation with Rodney. You know, he called me one morning and he said, what are you doing? And I said, man, I'm just crawling out of the morning. And he's paused for a second. He was like, that's a good line for a song. And he said, you should write that down. And I said, yeah, okay. So I wrote it down, and the next time I picked up my guitar and started playing that riff, crawling out of the morning, shedding dead skin. Last night I was a real chameleon. And I was like, okay, I know where this is going now. And so I started to piece this song together. Suddenly I realized it was a story about getting sober, sort of like looking back on the chaos of years of just, you know, in and out of the weeds of life, and I had the meat of this song that I needed, you know. And once I had that, and that first line that pointed to where I wanted to go, I was able to write the rest of the song pretty quickly. Like, within a week, I sort of had the whole lyric sketched out, and it all came together. And so what I'm trying to sort of help people with this course is creating a motif on the guitar and finding just one nugget of an idea for a song, either a title or a lyric or whatever it is. If it's meaningful to you, then it has energy and you can work with that. That's just like the first spark to get the thing going.
Yeah,
and
it
once
pulls you.
Yeah. And once it becomes something you care about, then you've really got something, because then you can flesh out the rest of the landscape for the lyric and the architecture for the song. And so that's what I'm trying to do. And Brett's great at sort of drawing out those little things and helping me explain what it is when I get to those points, because I can often move a million miles an hour, and he's good about being like, okay, so why did you do that? Why did you go to that chord? Or, lyrically, why did you go to that place?
One thing that surprised me by the story that you just shared about that songwriting process is that it took place over a week or more. And it's kind of interesting. A lot of folks that I've spoken to about this process who are deep in the songwriting craft seems to go one of two ways. Either it all comes out in 45 minutes and then you're just like, whoa, there's the song. And then maybe you go back for a second draft, or it's this process that sort of a song develops over the course of a week or many weeks or a year. And then at the end of the year, you're like, oh yeah, that's what that song needed, this last little piece. What tends to be the pattern for you?
Both, really. Yeah. Sometimes it comes quick. I mean, I usually get gifted one of those a year. The rest of them I really have to work for.
Yeah.
I'll get one that'll just, for some odd reason, fall out and be pretty much all there. Like sometimes it's like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But the rest of them take time for me. Some people are, really quick at it, and they're good and quick too. But it's never really been that way for me. I don't know why. Just, I got to work for it.
What tools are you using in the songwriting process? Both like tools to navigate creating verses and structure, writing tools, as well as like, are you using Rhyme Zone? Are you using any other like tools for creating?
Yeah. There's probably a lot of tools that would help me that I don't use. I could probably use some. But, like, I go so much on instinct when I'm writing, and I don't usually settle for... I can't just settle on something for the sake of getting it done. I have to feel like it's the right thing. And that's probably why it takes me so long sometimes. Mm-hmm. Because I just, I want to do good work, and I want the narrative of the song to really be strong and supported and have the right visual images, that I want. And so like, rewriting and editing, I spend way more time doing that than I do on the original sort of thing, But that's also the advantage of collaboration. When you have someone in the room, it can really help you do that kind of work a lot quicker, because you just have another perspective. And so I feel like solo writing is really important. And I do feel like that's a skill that can get overlooked in Nashville a lot. I try to encourage people that I work with to like really develop that skill of like having a solo perspective. And I feel like it's every bit as important as having a collaborative short list of people that you know, can really lean on to work with. There's a real yin and yang that's important. I feel like having both of those things developed.
Yeah. It's an interesting time in music because of all of these like AI systems coming online, and whether people speak about it publicly or not. I know a lot of my friends, probably a lot of your friends, are at least using AI to like sketch out demos. And what place does AI have in the creative process for you? And I'm curious, what are your thoughts and opinions around Suno and tools like this coming out?
Yeah, well, I personally don't use AI for anything.
Yeah.
And that's not to say I won't. It hasn't come across my creative sort of radar yet. But I'm seeing it a lot in the studio nowadays. In fact, the last record that I worked on a couple of weeks ago, every demo that was played in the process was made with Suno.
Yeah. Unbelievable how good it is right now.
Yeah, it seems to be very efficient, I guess. I didn't know it at first when I heard the first demo.
You didn't realize it was Suno?
I didn't know it wasn't a human thing. I was like, but then I couldn't put my finger on who was doing any of it. You know, like it kind of sounded like a lot of different people.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, whoever this demo singer is like, that's really good. Like, they're probably going to get something going.
Yeah.
And finally, I was like, you know, this is really good, but I don't care about it. And why don't I care about it? Because it doesn't have a human element.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Did you have that thought after you realized it was AI or before?
After.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Because I was like, well, this is really good. And then someone, you know, mentioned that they had made the demos with Suno, and I sort of thought, okay. Well, that's why it's really good, but it's also why I'm not going to drive away from here and give it a second thought, because nothing about it is going to stick with me.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to be like, wow, you know, that was so good. Like, that was unforgettable. Also, like, so I have a few thoughts about this AI thing. And the pendulum swings, right? Like, whenever there's a new technology, you know, humans always gorge themselves on all this stuff because it's amazing and it does this and it does that and it makes this easier and that easier. You know, that's always the first reaction. It's like the iPhone. You like, remember when iPhones came out and people were like, oh, iPhones, you know, like people started disappearing into these worlds, these black mirrors.
And they seemingly haven't come back out.
Yeah. But, you know, so there will be this sort of like overuse of this technology, you know, and then the pendulum will swing back because people they will want a human element again. They will realize they miss it.
Yeah.
You know, they'll realize they miss it, like, you know, the whole reason Whole Foods, you know, had its and has its place in the world is because people want real food. You know, they don't want processed crap. And I think, you know, that'll happen musically too. You know, both things will always have their place. You know, there'll be people that just want to consume music without really caring about the human element because they want to dance or they just want to move they just don't want to think about it. or it doesn't resonate as deeply with them. And there will be those that really do feel connected to human music and that element, and they will seek it out, and both things will run in parallel. The thing that scares me about the Suno thing specifically for Nashville is I worry about, like, I came up in the studio and session world playing demos and honing my skills and my learning how to contribute parts to recordings through playing demos. If that goes away, what is the next where are the next crop of session players going to learn their craft? That was my first thought with the Suno thing.
Yep.
A couple weeks ago.
On-ramps are going away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that worries me, you know, like, I don't know about that. You know, I don't know. The moral compass with technology is always questionable. Yeah. You know, like, you know, you just don't know how much people care about other people as opposed to how much money they're going to make. Yeah. I mean, you know, that's sort of the way of the world in general, but you know, I don't know. It does worry me that you know, platforms like Spotify seemingly have allowed you know, purely AI generated music to be a real competitor with human made music
without identification or labeling of AI. Yeah.
That seems worrisome to me.
I think that's the biggest concern that I think a lot of people share is, like, there is a finite amount of human attention available, and it's already difficult as an artist to it sounds weird, but to occupy enough of that attention to make it sustainable, because these projects require resources, and in order to get those resources, you have to have people who are a fan of your thing, and you know, it's already a pretty slim resource that's to go around. And if AI takes off and 99% of all recorded music out there is AI generated, there's not as much space, there's not as much airtime for human generated music, which kind of makes the prospect less sustainable, which is the scary part. Yeah.
I mean,
not to get dark, but you know.
Well, it's easy to get dark.
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, we're already up against, you know, 0.003 cents a stream split, probably, if you're, you know, in business with somebody. And then when you're up against a machine spitting out popular music.
Yeah. It's wild. It's a wild time.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I went through a similar experience with visual AI, which seemed to come online, I don't know, a year earlier than this. If you remember, like late last year, some of the Mid-Journey stuff, and, you know, first images and then video. As it started to come online, it was like, wow, that's a dazzling picture. But for some reason, I don't care.
Oh, that's interesting.
It was like the first few images, at least my experience was like the first few images I saw were like, that's incredible. Illustrators are done. Yeah. And then after I saw like 10 of them, I was like, well, I just know it's AI, and I just don't care anymore. Yeah. It just doesn't, like, it doesn't like hit any of the things that make art good.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that I think with the new model of Suno, like, when I heard the first few tracks out of it, I was like, oh, okay. This is real. This is our moment. This is our, you know, the digital camera moment, or the, you know, or cameras in general, when painters were like, wait a second, you can't take photos of stuff. That's our job.
Yeah.
This is our moment for that. And then after I heard a few of those tracks, I was like, okay, I can tell now, and I don't care as much. Yeah. About this music. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is, if you're creating music that this thing is using to model and learn your instincts and your artistic sort of perspective, And the only way you can survive is by putting your music out into the world on these streaming platforms. At what point do you say, well, what I'm doing to survive is being used against me?
Yeah, I'm going to stop putting it out.
As an artist, I mean, where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's the most kind of salacious part of it. And a lot of it is being done without permission. And
yeah. I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, personally, like, as far as my playing anyway, like, I never know what I'm going to do from one note to the next. So the fact that something could predict what I'm going to do, just to me, just seems impossible because I make so many mistakes, you know, like hilarious mistakes. But it's because I just don't think about my playing in any kind of predictive way. So I wonder if a machine could ever get that. But I don't know. It worries me. Yeah. I don't think we even know half of the implications yet of how this is going to play out.
I'm curious to sort of transition here out of AI Doomland and into something more fun. What are your thoughts or perspectives on gear? What's your setup?
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple of things that work for me that I've been using for years, pretty much. And I love the whole, you know, gear thing, and I love finding a good guitar as much as the next person, you know. And I love trying stuff, but you know, and I get questions about gear all the time, you know, like, what do you think about this pedal, or, you know, these pickups, you know, have you tried these? Or, you know, there's just like a million gearhead questions. And it's all valid to a point, but I always try to tell people, like, you know, gear, you know, you need stuff, you need gear to make music, but you don't need it more than you knowing your instrument, or, you know, or writing your song, or, you know, working on your craft. Don't lose sight of that. You know, don't spend more time on reverb than you do working on your song today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and like Daniel Lanois said something great in an interview years ago. He's like, you don't need a lot of gear. You need a couple things that you really know how to use. And that's what you need. And I that really resonated with me. And, you know, I have an old Electro Harmonix Memory Man that I've had for almost 25 years that has been on every pedal board I've ever had. And so I know what that does and how to use that. And it works. And then I have this one particular fuzz pedal I've had for years that does a certain thing, you know, like, that works with my head and my hands. and you know, it's good to have a couple of guitars that, you know, you can stay on top of the maintenance, keep them working properly. You know, for me, I love to you know, I have one acoustic guitar that I really love that I've had for 20 something years.
What is it?
It's a DeGrucci Dreadnought. Like, it's like a D45 with abalone and Brazilian rosewood. Yeah. And yeah, and if I just had to have one and make a living, I could probably do it with that one. And that's not to say I wouldn't love to have this 43 herringbone Martin.
That'll do too. Yeah.
You know, like, that would be great, you know. But it's, you know, spend more time just trying to find a couple things and really knowing and connecting with those things, I think, is like, at the end of the day, it's, you know, as Guy Clark used to say, they're just tools.
They're just tools, yeah.
You know,
right.
like, don't obsess over gear.
Have you gone down the like modeler, neural DSP rabbit hole at all?
Nope.
Yeah.
I got 3 young children and I do not have the time.
Yeah.
Or the interest, really. Like, I'm just kind of, I've got a 64 Deluxe Reverb.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a 59 Tweed Deluxe. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Those are my 2 main amplifiers, and they're easy to work on.
Yeah.
They're easy to keep running, and they sound great. And you know, I don't really lust after anything. I mean, I'd love to have a flame top. Who wouldn't? You know, I've played some unbelievable flame tops where I'm like, man, this would be great to have. But you know, I have a B-Bender Parts Telecaster that I built during COVID that I love, and then I take to every session, and it's a good guitar. I don't know. I just, you know, the gear thing is fun, and I'm not saying like I'm not interested in gear. I feel like it's easy to lose focus on practicing and learning and writing and creating if you get too in the weeds with all that.
Speaking of which, what do you practice? What are you learning these days?
These days, I'm working on trying to read more in general. Like when I get up in the morning and I make my cup of coffee, I make sure instead of scrolling on my phone that I've got just a little stack of books, and I don't put too much pressure on myself to like finish anything, but I do consciously make myself pick up a book in the morning and read a bit. And then musically, I've really been working on trying to expand my chordal knowledge and knowledge of theory in general, because I'm like I've just relied on my ear for so long to learn things that I don't know a lot of the technical aspects of chordal things, you know, even though I know the chord, I don't know what it's called or why it's called that.
Wow.
So like I'm pushing myself to kind of build a little bit more of a knowledge of that because it helps explain things in general.
How are you approaching learning that?
Just like probably like everybody else, like, you know, what's an A diminished thing? I'll like Google it, or I'll like get on YouTube and I'll type in the chord and some videos will come up and I'll be like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, or, you know, chord I've been playing a half diminished or whatever, I'll play the chord and I'll be like, I really should learn the name of that and why it's called that, you know? And so I'll go on a little hunt and I'll be like, you know, I'll look at the notes and I'll deconstruct what it is and I'll, you know, just, you know, try to work on things like that. I'm forever a Danny Gatton fan, and this is actually a pretty cool story. Quick one.
Yeah. Please.
When I was a kid, I had this cassette tape, a Sony music sampler, and everything on it was crap, other than the very last track was Danny Gatton's Sun Medley. And I remember I was like 11 years old and I heard this thing that came on at the end of the tape, and I was like completely mind blown, you know, like who on earth is Danny Gatton? So I listened to it a million times, rewound this tape and wore it out, and then I started learning about Danny Gatton and, you know, reading about him, and I was able to find a couple of his other records and became a lifelong fan. So fast forward, you know, 25 years, 30 years, I go to Vince Gill's house and I see this guitar from across the room on a stand, and I look at it and I was like, God, that looks just like Danny Gatton's ES350 from he played it live on Austin City Limits. And I walked over to it and I just stared at it because I was like, that's Danny Gatton's guitar. And then Vince came over to me and he said, "That's cool, isn't it?" And I was like, "Is that Danny Gatton's?" He was like, "Yeah." He was like, "I bought a few things from the family, and it's his tweed twin over there, and his one of his ES 295s." And I was just like, man, I used to listen to this guitar when I was a kid. Like, I cannot believe you have this guitar. And he was like, "Play it, use it." And we were working on some new music of his, and I used it on a few tracks, and it totally tripped me out, man, because I was like playing the guitar I listened to when I was a kid. And
that's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And a few months ago, we got off the road, and he called me and he left me a voicemail. He said, "Hey, come by the house. I got something for you." And I said, "Okay." I called him back and I was like, "I'm on my way to a session, but I can swing by." And so I went by the house, and he said, "Hey, come into the studio." And he said, "I've been going through things, cleaning up a bit, and I got something I want you to have." And he pulled out this brown Gibson case, and he put it on the couch, and he opened it up, and it was that guitar. And I just stood there, just like, I didn't know what to say, I just started crying, and I think the first thing I said was, "Are you sure? Are you sure you want me to have this?" And he was like, "Yeah, buddy." He was like, "I'll never forget the first time you saw that guitar, and I know what it means to you, and I think you should have it." And wow. I just, I'll never get over it, I just can't believe it. And so, I've been playing that guitar a lot, and I said to him, I said, "I'll take care of it, and it'll get played a lot."
Yeah.
He said, I know.
Yeah.
So I've been taking it to all my sessions, and you're just playing a lot. And so, you asked what I've been working on, and I've really been working on just getting inside of like more of that hillbilly country jazz, crazy Danny Gatton stuff,
So cool.
Yeah, it is.
Fun.
It is. I know. It's just another one of those crazy things from when I was a kid that's just like
full circle.
Yeah, crazy full circle.
That's not one that you can just envision as a kid. You're like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna play with Vince Gill." Maybe you can see that, but Vince Gill's gonna give me Danny Gatton's guitar. It's not on the manifestation list as a 15-year-old.
I know,
That's
man.
Wild.
It's such an honor. I just very lucky.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, man, Jedd, this has been an incredible time, and I really appreciate you carving out the time to come and teach us and share your story. And so thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me down here.
Is there anything else that folks can kind of follow up with you on across the internet, stuff that's coming out over the next 6-8 months?
Well, a good way to stay in touch, if anybody out there wants to, is you can subscribe to my little YouTube channel.
Great. And we'll probably post this. I think YouTube just announced like a collab feature, so maybe we'll post it that way. Your YouTube's in there.
Yeah, that's that's cool. Yeah, that would be great if people want to find the course, songwriting course with Brett Papa.
Should be out early summer 26.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. So by the time this comes out, if you're watching this in the early part of the year, probably a couple months out, there will be a songwriting course from Jedd.
Yeah. And then if you want to keep up with Tom and I and Guthrie and the Bukovac Trap Hughes project, you can do that too through YouTube. And
Does Guitar Party have its own YouTube channel?
It doesn't, and I think we might change. It might just end up being Bukovac Trap and Hughes, or some version of that. Guitar Party, we were sort of like, do we really want to hang our hats on Guitar Party? as a name, which, you know, it's fun and that's the spirit of it all. But,
yeah,
you know, it'll probably just be our names.
Great.
On the record.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to hearing it.
Yeah, thanks,
and
Spencer.
What legendary players on one record. It's so
thanks, man.
So cool.
Yeah, it's
I'm really
fun.
looking forward to hearing that.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well,
thank you.
We'll have to have you back again. I really appreciate you carving out the time.
Yeah, thank you,
Thanks
man.
again.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoyed it.